Hey there, friends on YouTube. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the ATL as Beverly Honest Tech. So honest it hurts, and today, we are going to talk about which M1 Mac or which M1 device should you consider buying? Which one is right for you? Which one should you consider picking up? Should you buy something now? Should you wait until the new stuff comes out? Should you wait until later in the year when they're going to announce maybe some other stuff? It's an interesting question because back in the day, when you got a MacBook Air, you knew what you were getting. You were getting a sort of all-around computer, but not really anything that was going to do a ton of like heavy lifting. And when you were getting a MacBook Pro 13-inch, you were sort of a little bit up from the MacBook Air, but you were doing okay. And then when you got something like a Mac Mini, well, they had pretty much crippled the Mac Mini in a lot of ways before, so that was one thing. And now they have the 24-inch iMac, which is an interesting proposition. And then, of course, now you have to add in the iPad Pros that are coming out just in a couple of weeks, a few weeks, where the days are not really well known. So how do you decide which one to buy? Which one is the right one for you? Well, you're in luck. Today, I'm going to walk you through all the differences. Now, if you are not familiar with these new M1 Macs, Apple has come out with their own chip architecture based on the ARM system, and it's similar to what they were using in the iPhones and the iPads before, a little bit more powerful. It has its own RAM, graphics, and CPU all sort of on one chip, and it's really made these new machines a lot more powerful than they could have been under the previous Intel system. So, when we look at these things, it's very interesting because whether it's the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro 13, the Mac Mini, the iMac 24-inch, the iPad Pro, they're all the same computer inside. So how do you make a decision? How do you make a decision that, for you and what you need? So let's walk through. Let's just talk about what they are. First, we'll start out here with the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air, it's always been, I think, Apple's most popular computer, one of Apple's most popular computers. And there's a lot of reason for that. It's thin, it's light, it goes all over the place, and it's just, if you have the need for just everyday computing stuff, then the MacBook Air is the perfect one for you. And I used to teach. I had a lot of students who carried around MacBook Airs, and they were perfect for them. But now the MacBook Air is an option for more power users. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Let's go over here to the tech specs, and you see we got a Retina display and then this new Apple M1 chip. It's got 8 cores of a CPU with 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. The base model has a 7-core GPU, 16-core neural engine, and then the upscaled model for $1249 has 8 cores for the GPU instead of 7. That's really the only difference here. So when you go to the buy page, you pick your gold, silver, space gray, and you then look at this, and like I said, 7-core GPU, 8-core GPU, M1 chip, 16-core neural engine, 8 gigabytes of unified memory. The only difference between this machine and this machine is 1 GPU core and 256 gigabytes of storage. What you're getting with the MacBook Air is the thin and light aspect of it, the small form factor, the ease of carrying it around, taking it anywhere. It's got a 13-inch screen, looks fantastic, and the only real differences in terms of anything is 1 GPU core and 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, 8 gigabytes of unified memory comes standard on each of the models. You can upgrade that to 16, and I have had both 16 and 8 gigabytes of RAM in the M1 Max that I've tried, and I haven't really found that the 8 GB model fell behind in anything. I never felt like I was losing anything by going with 8 GB. So you've got your MacBook Air. The thin and light aspect is probably the best feature there, but then you go on to the MacBook Pro 13-inch. There are a couple of differences here between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro 13, one of which being the touch bar, which the MacBook Air doesn't have. And the other thing is the MacBook Air is a fanless design. It doesn't have a fan inside, but these M1 chips run very, very cool. So it's not been a problem, in my experience, to have no fan in there. But the M1 MacBook Pro has a fan, one little fan, and it does seem to eke out a little bit more performance in benchmarks from what I've seen. What we find when we look at the 13-inch MacBook Pro is an 8-core CPU, 8-core GPU, again, 256 and 512 gigabytes of storage. You can upgrade to 16 gigabytes of RAM if you want to. It has the touch bar. It has 2 ports just like the MacBook Air did. It has a fan. And honestly, beyond that, there's no difference. Apple has not yet put out any kind of like 16 or whatever inch MacBook Pros with the M1 chip or whatever chip they might put in it. The same goes for there's not a Pro version of the Mac Mini. We don't know if there will be. And so we go on to the iMac. This is the brand new iMac. It is 24 inches. It comes in colors. And it starts at $12.99. It's not yet available second half of May. So let's go over here to the order screen and see if we find anything different about this. The 24-inch iMac is replacing the 21.5-inch iMac, and we notice something right away that's the same. We have the M1 chip across the board, and once again, these M1 chips are all the same. Okay, so there's not any difference in the chip that you get in any of these machines that I'm talking about today. The only differences are very slight from one model to the next, but the chip itself is the same chip. Here we have the 8-core with the 8-core CPU, 7-core GPU, 256 gigabytes of RAM, 8 gigabytes of memory, and the 24-inch, 4.5-inch Retina display, 2 Thunderbolt ports. That to me is too few for a desktop computer. Your mileage, of course, may vary. $12.99 for this computer that's going to be very, very powerful and take you a long way. You jump up to the $14.99 version, and you're getting not 2, but 4 ports. You get 2 Thunderbolt ports, 2 USB 3 ports, and you get an Ethernet port that's actually on the power supply that's included with this, because this machine is too thin to actually have a power supply inside. You also get more color choices. You get blue, green, red, silver with the low-end model, and then you add yellow, orange, and purple for the next level up. Over here, you get basically all the... Oh, and they've added a Magic Keyboard with Touch ID. So you get that with the upgraded model and not with the $12.99 model. Now you move up one more step, and the only difference between this computer at $16.99 and this computer at $14.99 is 512 gigabytes of storage instead of 256 gigabytes of storage. So here we have the same computer at $200 increments. Now, which computer would I buy if this was going to be my only computer? I would buy the $16.99 model. This computer will be able to do video editing. It'll be able to do just about anything that you throw at it. And yes, you can upgrade to more memory. Yes, you can upgrade to more storage. But at this base configuration, the $16.99 model is going to be enough computer for the most people. Now, what's the difference between this and the MacBooks? Well, obviously, portability and colors. I don't think you're going to find a small form factor desktop computer that beats this one anytime soon in price or performance. If you want a desktop go for the new 24-inch iMac. Now let's say you want a desktop, but you don't want to pay $16.99. Well, let's take a look at the Mac Mini. Now, if you're familiar with the Mac Mini, it is basically the guts of a Mac with no keyboard, no mouse, no screen, no nothing. It's just a Mac in a box. It's a Mac in a box, and this one, once again, has the M1 chip. The same chip that all the rest of these have. And let's look at the buy feature. So let's look at what it would cost to buy one of these things for yourself. So here we are, we've got two models. And this price is insane because once again, you get the M1 chip, you get 8-core CPU, you get 8-core GPU, you get 8 gigabytes of memory, 256 gigabytes of storage, and gigabit Ethernet. Now, we look back here on the iMac, and you'll see that you didn't get gigabit Ethernet until you went up to $14.99. So we're looking at a savings of at least $700 here. And when you look at the features that the Mac Mini has, you go up here, the next level up, the only difference is 512 gigabytes of storage for an extra $200. So let's take a second and go back to the tech specs page for the Mac Mini, and then we're going to find out where the Mac Mini maybe makes up for its lack of other stuff. And it is the only computer in this lineup that has this kind of variety. So we're looking specifically at the I/O of this machine. We've got Ethernet port, we've got 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB 4 ports, we've got HDMI 2.0, and then we have 2 USB-A ports and a headphone jack. This is the best variety of ports that you'll find. I mean, it's still only 4 ports, but you have more variety. If you have an old printer, if you have something that is USB-A, you can plug it right in without having to have an adapter or a dongle or anything else. So again, here you have all the computers in Apple's sort of consumer line, and they all have the same chip, they all have the same storage options, they all have the same memory options, and other than a graphics core here or there, they're basically the same computers, right? Now we get to the last thing that is just, this is where it gets a little crazy, and I'm not sure if it makes any sense, but we need to look at the new iPad Pro that Apple is releasing as well at the end of this month. I have an iPad Pro that I've used a lot, since 2018. It's a 2018 iPad Pro, and I don't feel like I've ever taxed that machine at all. And that has this, an A series chip like the iPads and the iPhones of the past. Now, they put an M1 chip in the iPad. And not only did they put an M1 chip in the iPad, they made the USB-C port that was in the iPad Pro previously into a Thunderbolt port. So we're looking at an entirely different thing. When we look at the ordering aspects, you have your 11-inch and it has a Liquid Retina display, and you have your 12-inch which has the Liquid Retina and XDR display. They're still relatively the same price ranges, and you can get space gray and silver all the way up to 2 terabytes of storage. You can also get 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM memory, just like you can with all of the other machines. But now it's in an iPad. Here's the thing, the iPad still runs iPad OS. It doesn't run programs like Final Cut or Logic or any professional programs that somebody who's doing graphic design or video editing or any kind of audio production would use. But it has the same internals, the same powerful M1 chip, etc., as all the rest of the stuff. So the big question is it worth buying this iPad over any of the other machines? The MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, the iMac, the Mac Mini. What does the iPad offer that they don't? Well, it's I guess it has pencil support. It is a tablet and not a clamshell laptop computer. It is compatible with the older keyboards, the Magic keyboards that just came out, although it doesn't fit exactly. There's a new Magic keyboard that came out. I use a Magic keyboard with my iPad right now, and for all intents and purposes, for most of what I do, it is as good as a laptop. But iPad OS is not Mac OS, and it is somewhat limiting in how it works if you're using Mac OS for the majority of your workflow. Could this be a computer for somebody? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Can you edit video, audio, etc., graphic design, that kind of thing on an iPad? Absolutely. The workflows are different, but here we are. We have five machines that Apple is putting out, all with the same chips, all with the same configuration options, all basically the same machine internally with differences on the outside. Which one is best for you? You've got so many options in terms of form factors, value, any number of things. And just remember that you have not yet seen what they're going to do with their more professional line of computers in the 16-inch MacBook Pro or the whatever's going to replace the 27-inch iMac, whether it be a 32-inch iMac or something different. You've not seen, will they put out a Mac Mini Pro? We don't know. So there's going to be a lot of stuff still to come. But for the majority of people, even people who do light video editing, that kind of thing, for the majority of people, any one of these machines would work. They all have their things that you need to be aware of. But they're all the same computer. This is what really freaks me out. Apple seems to have created a logjam of the same chip with a bunch of different computers, and maybe making it harder for people to choose what computer they want. I don't know. For me, it is a very difficult decision. If I was gonna buy only one, I honestly don't know which one I would buy. I probably would go with the 13-inch MacBook Pro, but the iPad, because of its flexibility, is very tempting as well, even if I can't do my video editing on Final Cut Pro and my audio stuff with Logic Pro. Now, that could change someday, but you don't buy a machine in the hopes that it'll support something later. You buy the machine to use it for yourself now. So let me know what you think. Which of these machines would you prefer to use, or are you waiting for the next one? Talk to me down in the comments below. Once again, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. My name is Jason, sometimes known as JTL. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out. Hey there. Now, you might have just finished watching a video where I talked to you about whatever it is that I was talking to you about. And right now, something's going to pop up here on the screen that's going to show you a video that's in some way related to the topic that I just discussed with you. I recommend that you watch that video. This video, that video, subscribe to the channel with the little button with my picture in it. Okay?